Kia ora, I'm Chelsea Daniels, and this is The Front Page, a daily podcast presented by the New Zealand Herald. New details have emerged about what could be happening behind the scenes at Gloriavale. Authorities have been quietly involved in yet another investigation there, with the Children's Minister and Oranga Tamariki both involved. This time, a mass allegation investigation relates to concerns that parents were taught to cover the mouths of children and babies to stop them from crying. NZ Herald senior investigative reporter Michael Morrah has been digging into this, and he joins us now on The Front Page. First off, Michael, I know in this day and age you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't know what Gloria Vale is, but how would you explain it to someone who just didn't know anything about it?
I guess it's a secretive sect on the west coast of the South Island. It's a fundamentalist Christian community. They have a very male-dominated leadership structure. Women don't really have the same rights or leadership roles as the men, who there's the overseeing shepherd and then the shepherds do. They have a very shared sense of belonging, and they promote large families. They have strict protocols on what you can dress. They also do not like influence from the outside world, which is seen as evil, and their world is seen as following Jesus Christ and what he would do.
How many people are there? Do we know?
About 600 members at Gloriavale currently.
Wow. And a lot of kids?
Yes, mostly children. So the population of Gloriavale is mainly made up of young people.
Tell me about how you first learned that there might be another investigation happening behind the scenes at Gloriavale, and what are those allegations?
So I've just started doing some investigative work into Gloriavale, and part of that involved filing some Official Information Act requests with the Children's Minister, Karen Chaw. As part of that request, I sought updates and ministerial briefings. I essentially, as a journalist, wanted to know what precisely was going on at Gloriavale right now in 2025, and what had the minister been advised was going on. What I learned is that police and Oranga Tamariki have quietly been conducting what they term a mass allegation investigation at Gloriavale. This has involved more than 100 interviews with parents, children who are current residents of Gloriavale, as well as some former residents or leavers of Gloriavale. This investigation in November last year, and it's now been complete. And what I've learned from the documents is that this investigation was carried out as a result of concerns that came out in the Royal Abuse and Care Inquiry. Now, that Abuse and Care Inquiry obviously heard from lawyers and former residents of Gloriavale about the abuse and harm they say occurred during their time within this community. And it was that information which prompted this mass allegation investigation. Now, what exactly was it all about? Well, one aspect, and it hasn't really been covered much at all in the media in terms of what the Commission heard, was that there was a practice at Gloriavale that founder hopeful Christian essentially taught and encouraged, and that was, if a child is crying or upset or making noise, there is a method to stop that, and it should be encouraged because it's disciplining a child. And parents who discipline their children and who have well-behaved children at Gloriavale are given the big tick that they're doing well. And that method to quieten children was to put your hand over the baby or child's mouth and nose, so that they would not cry anymore. Now, obviously, that is incredibly dangerous. However, I have spoken to former Gloriavale residents who told me parents were never told of the risks of this to a child. It was all about discipline and they were taught these techniques, which is hand over mouth to prevent a child from crying.
Yeah, I mean, you've spoken to at least one former Gloriavale resident, Virginia Courage, I saw. What's she said about her experiences there as a parent?
Well, her comments in my story out on nzherald.co.nz this morning verifies what the Royal Commission into Abuse and Care heard. And what the Commission heard was that, quote, several former residents reported seeing children and infants turning blue after they had been essentially suffocated by their parents when they were crying. Virginia Courage told me that in about 2014, she was in a meeting. This was a married couples meeting, and during that meeting, Hopeful Christian and another person who she says was some sort of medical authority within Gloriavale, even though he had no medical training whatsoever, spoke about this technique and said not to worry about asphyxiation, and that the child who would go quiet would still be able to breathe because they would just then relax. But it was about teaching them discipline. And so her comments was that she saw children turning blue in her time. She also said to me that she had to, on one occasion, and this was in 2006, between 2006 and 2008, she was brought a baby who was limp and in the arms of her father, and she was asked to resuscitate the baby, which she did. Of course, Virginia, as a woman in Gloriavale, did not make a fuss about this, did not say to the father, "What are you doing?" Because women and saying something like that to a man in Gloriavale is frowned upon. She told me she was horrified and terrified by the practice and the fact that it was being taught. And she said to her husband, they would never do that to their children. But she recalls growing up in Gloriavale, she saw it happen regularly to other children. And she saw children, kids, plural, go blue when this occurred.
An outsider might look in and say, well, these children are being exploited.
They talk nonsense. They talk nonsense. These children are growing up learning now to take responsibility. They're not going to go on the dole. We will find work for people, and if they can't work for some reason, we will look after them. I believe that God's given me a job to do, and that's why we started the community. And whatever that meant to do that, I've done it.
So what else have the documents revealed? What does the Children's Minister know about this?
So I've spoken to Karen Chaw. She was quite reluctant to go into specifics about this investigation. But what we do know from police, or maybe I'll just mention the police action first on this because that's quite important here. The police have carried out this investigation that's now complete, and they have issued 2 formal warnings to 2 residents at Gloriavale, and they are also doing what they're calling techniques. They're giving parents techniques on how to deal with various childhood behaviours and scenarios. So that's the official action that police in Oranga Tamariki have taken. 2 formal warnings and then education and advice. Now, the Minister says that's a good, positive step because her team, who she says she has recently increased resources for in Greymouth, are going in there regularly and are advising parents about what you should and shouldn't do when you have a child or baby. So she says that's a good start. Will it I said to her, well, will this actually result in change? And she said, well, look, it may not change the entire world, but it's a start, is what she said. I also asked her, in light of these this evidence and these investigations and what the Royal Commission has already found, should Gloriavale still be functioning in 2025. And she said to me that she would not offer her personal opinion on the state of Gloriavale, but that under her watch, her job was to ensure that children were safe, and that's what she would do. And she said that if police or Oranga Tamariki learned that children were being harmed in Gloriavale, it's her expectation that they would be removed from that community. And she's quite adamant that her team are in there regularly doing the best job that they can. They've been properly resourced to do that job, and she's keeping a very close eye on the situation.
What does regular mean?
I think regular means weekly. So Oranga Tamariki are going in there weekly to check on things that are happening there. Just in terms of a little bit of a background as well to this mass allegation investigation, to give you a bit of a steer on just how significant this was. Oranga Tamariki, between October 2024 and August this year, received, so that's 11 months, they received 81 reports of concern from within the Gloriavale community.
Wow.
So this really gives you, Chelsea, a pretty strong indication of just how problematic things have been. So these reports of concern, the 81, 60 of those reports of concern related to this mass allegation investigation, which of course was this practice or technique or method of covering up a child or baby's airways when they are upset or crying. So that is the result of the investigation so far, these formal warnings from police and the education and advice being offered.
Who else have you spoken to about this?
I've spoken to lawyer Brian Henry. You may remember Brian Henry's name. He is...
he's been in court before, right?
Yep, he has. In fact, he led 2 landmark cases which were successful in the employment court, which determined that his clients, former Gloriavale residents, were in fact employees at Gloriavale, not volunteers. During those court cases, he effectively, he did state that essentially Gloriavale was operating off the back of slave labour and child labour in some instances. So that is what the employment court heard, and they agreed with him, and there has been various reparations that Gloriavale has had to pay out as a result of that. So Brian Henry has essentially been spearheading action against Gloriavale. He was scathing of the action taken by police and of the comments of the Children's Minister, Karen Chaw, in this instance. In his words, he says, this practice of hand over mouth amounts to suffocating a child. And it is, in his words, a very, very serious crime. In his words, it's also very, very violent. And he is highly critical of the minister, telling me that how can she sit back in Wellington and say that she's reassured that everything is okay in Gloriavale when we know that it's still operating and when we know that this sort of thing has been going on. He also points out that doing things like issuing warnings or offering education and advice to leaders at Gloriavale, in his mind, will not lead to change, because don't forget, Gloriavale is a community whereby they all listen to the shepherds and the overseeing shepherd. They call the shots. It's not police or Oranga Tamariki who they necessarily listen to. That's what he says. That's what Brian Henry says anyway. So he is deeply sceptical about whether these formal warnings and education being dished out by police in Oranga Tamariki is going to lead to lasting change because of the extent of control and manipulation that has been visited on the people of Gloriavale for many, many decades.
It sounds like he would rather Gloriavale ended.
Well, I mean, exactly. And he's said that to me, during our interview, that how can the minister say that we're doing all that we can to ensure these children are safe when Gloriavale is still operating? That's the fundamental problem here, is that Gloriavale is still in existence in 2025. He says this government and consecutive governments have failed to do anything about Gloriavale.
For decades.
For 50 years, Chelsea.
Yeah.
This is how long it's been going on for. And we know leaders like Hopeful Christian was a convicted sex offender. We know there's been multiple cases brought before the courts where sexual assault on young people has been proven, and police have been involved in that. So he is deeply sceptical of the minister's reassurances and invites her to go and talk to some of the leaders of Gloriavale to understand the gravity and the seriousness of the current situation.
And so what would you say to them in Gloriavale that are genuinely scared and don't know what's out there in the outside world?
I would say to them that the world is so much bigger than Gloriavale, and it's okay to ask questions, and life is more than just surviving. God put us on this earth to have imaginations and to have hobbies and to live and enjoy it, not just survive. And life can be fun. It doesn't just have to be work, work, work. And you can ask questions, you can be you. And being you's okay.
Has Gloriavale responded to any of this?
Yes, so they have come back to me, and in an email attributed to a community spokesperson, they tell me that the members of Gloriavale uphold the national expectations of safety for children in New Zealand. They also point out that since 2016, there have been education programs within Gloriavale on safe parenting and child safety awareness, and that since 2016, these education processes have, quote, progressively been embedded. They also talk about the mass allegation investigation, and the community spokesperson told me that there was a significant percentage of internal reporting that had taken place by parents self-reporting, which is how Oranga Tamariki may have become aware of this issue. They say that there were 2 formal warnings issued by police. One was the result of a parent self-reporting, and the other allegation was denied. The spokesperson says neither allegation involved a member while in a professional role, and that neither allegation led to further action. But just to confirm, they have said that it was in 2024 that police and OT held a meeting with parents and leaders and were, quote, very clearly told of the emotional and physical dangers of restricting the airway in young people. Essentially, what Gloriavale is telling me is that they have taken on board this meeting when police turned up and OT turned up and said, hey, look, you can't restrict a child's airways. They've taken that on board, and they have been implementing these changes over many years. Now, of course, when you get a statement like this as a journalist and it says that education programs have been progressively embedded, I then went back to Gloriavale and said, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that this is still possibly happening? And the response I got was, to my knowledge, no parents are practicing this. So I guess that's the reassurance from Gloriavale, is that this is not happening anymore. It was hardly what I would say a compelling green light that all is well. But I think what is important here, Chelsea, is that it was the Royal Commission who unearthed this information about children having their airways restricted. Was it the leaders at Gloriavale who volunteered and said, hey guys, we just realised we've been doing this and it might not be the best way to treat kids? Was it Gloriavale leaders who offered up this information to police or authorities? No, it was not. It was leavers. It was former residents who told police and OT, and the Commission about what happened. And it is on that basis that police and OT have begun this investigation.
How confident are you that this practice has ended?
Well, look, I'm not in Gloriavale. I haven't been down there for some time. I have spoken to people at Gloriavale because I would like to go down and catch up with the new overseeing shepherd who's been put in charge of the place. But I don't know is the answer. It depends on who you asked. I suspect that some would believe it of course is still going on because, as I've said, these sorts of practices and techniques, just like you have to dress like this, and just like we have this structure of men in charge and women are not, you listen to the leadership. The leadership are in total control, and you have to abide by what they say. And this form of discipline for children was brought in, recommended and endorsed by Hopeful Christian, the founder of Gloriavale. But look, we have to also listen to what the minister is saying here, listen to what police and OT have done. This is not a small investigation. This is a huge months-long investigation. More than 100 interviews were taking place. And they say that they're now in there making sure parents are aware of parenting techniques and how to treat their children. And of course, we have Gloriavale saying that, they have been implementing these child safety programs since about 2016. And they have also told me that, to their knowledge, no parents are practicing this anymore. So look, it depends on who you ask. We've been told that it's not happening anymore. So I think we have to, I don't have any evidence that it is still going on at Gloriavale at this time.
Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Pleasure.
That's it for this episode of The Front Page. You can read more about today's stories and extensive news coverage at nzherald.co.nz. The Front Page is produced by Jane Yee and Richard Martin, who is also our editor. I'm Chelsea Daniels. Subscribe to The Front Page on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, and tune in tomorrow for another look behind the headlines.